Welcome! Welcome to Hug Nation. We are in a new location. Or are we? Maybe he's on a green screen. Maybe this whole guise of Halcyon is actually an animatronic, or better yet, a 3D projection. Well, no, it's just me and I'm in a new location. But the topic of the day is learning about brain failures and not to trust reality. Now, you may think brain failures and mistrusting reality would be a negative thing, but I'm here to tell you this is a key step towards bliss, towards joy. And I'll try to explain what I mean. We are so conditioned to have absolute faith in our perceptions. And for most things, that's a good thing. You know, if you look to the left, look to the right, you see no cars, you should probably clear to cross the street. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Left, right, then left again. I would have failed that test. And if you see a car, probably should not cross the street. Most of the time, trust your perceptions. But when we fall into that kind of just taking for granted that those things are always to be trusted, and worse yet, when those memories of those things should to be trusted, we find ourselves in a place of leaving very little room for ideas that might be outside of what we already believe to be true. Because of a number of things, one of which we have a bias to find and see and notice the things that we're looking for. Let me take a couple steps back. Let's think about the way perception works. And I should preface this by saying I am the farthest thing from a scientist, except for those lab coat years right after college where I was experimenting. Well, never mind. The point is, these are just my perceptions of things and the stories about reality that help me to put a framework around the world. But as you see me right now, well, first of all, you're seeing me on a screen, so I do not exist as far as your brain right now sees me as a three-dimensional thing. But where's the proof of that? The proof of that is in all these visual cues. The lightness and darkness, the difference of the background focus to foreground focus. There's all these dots that our brain connects to make this assumption. And that happens constantly. So we get reflections of light that, depending on the wavelength of it, we see as different colors. The world is not in the colors that we see. You know that, right? What we say is green, if an alien from another planet came down, or animals that have different perception mechanisms, they would see the light the light at that vibration. What's it called? The wave, the frequency. They would see that frequency and interpret it in some way. But they might even, if we say that's green, they would then label it green. But that doesn't mean it's the same green that we see. That's just the way that we interpret that light wave. Audio is vibrations that we interpret. Great, fine, no problem with that. For most of our lives, or 99.9% of the time, it works great. But it's important to understand that we are not perceiving absolute reality ever. We are taking clues and variables and dots on a map and then trying to make a picture of it. Our brain, the gift of our big primate brain, our big frontal lobe, and all the goodness of our intellect is in making assumptions based on data. And you know what happens when you make an assumption, don't you? Something about asses. Okay, so first of all, just recognizing that at any moment, your record, your perception is a best that you can do with what's going on. The next huge thing to understand is that once we store a memory, we are so far removed from what actually happened. Meaning, we sometimes, when we recall things, we can replay a movie in our head. It feels like that we can remember exactly what happened. Somebody asks us and we go, oh yeah, that's when this and this. But we do not have a video in our head of what's happened. We have data points. We have little pieces that then when they're filed in different parts of our brain. And so then we're asked to recall, we put all the pieces together. For most things, it works fine, as long as you understand the limitations of this system. If you have ever been in a court case, or have ever listened to a lawyer talk about eyewitness testimony, it's incredibly powerful because we all have a lot of passion and belief that I saw what I saw. But the reality is you did not. There's tons of research about how suggestible we are and about how memories change as we recall them. So the very nature of memory is that as you remember something, you take the memory out of the filing cabinet and then you rewrite it as you remember it. So if in the process of remembering it, somebody introduces something, like someone says, hey, remember when we lost the game to our rivals? And you go, yeah. And remember when the mascot on the other side of the team totally got in a fight with our mascot? And you're like, kinda. And you picture for a moment that scenario. And then in a week from now you go, well, remember that time when there was the fight between our mascots? And you now you've rewritten that memory. You go, oh yeah, I remember that. And you will actually see it. And it will feel as real as if you once perceived it, and yet it never happened. The scary thing about that is that means sometimes our most vivid memories, our most frequent memories, which we would think would be I will never forget that. I think about it all the time. Oh, you think about it all the time? That means it's probably the least accurate memory that you have because you're constantly rewriting it, but not like a computer, like a game of telephone. So, and you may not even know this happened. You might get in a fight with somebody because you're absolutely sure that what you saw is what you saw in this scenario or that scenario. I saw a TED Talk last night that was all about a guy who'd been in prison for 15 years based on eyewitness testimony, and then they decided to look at the case, and they had this forensic expert, this guy who was giving the talk, saying, according to the time of day and the distance of everything, and he kind of recreated the scene, and then had the judge come out to the exact same place at the exact same time. He goes, what can you see? And he's like, nothing. You can't make out the face at all of the people in the car. And yet, 6 people who witnessed the shooting swore and convicted somebody based on their testimony, wrongly convicted somebody based on their testimony. And that happens all the time. Which is why wherever you go, you should leave blood or semen so that you can always get off on DNA testing. Wait, I'm not sure if that works. Okay, don't listen to me. But it's not always as grand as needing a jury. A good friend of mine was in a situation recently where they were in it was a bad situation. There was a peeping Tom in the neighborhood, and many people had reported it. And in fact, my friend had seen the peeping Tom on one occasion. And then there was a couple weeks later, of course that freaks you out, right? A couple weeks later, swore up and down, saw the guy again, heard some rustling, called the police. It was a big to-do. And then over time, over the next couple of days and weeks, started putting these pieces together and realized, okay, he may have been there another time, but the time in question when we called the police, that was definitely a squirrel. But our brain takes pieces of information and connects the dots as best as it can based on other information, based on other knowledge, based on other places of focus. And to go side railing a little bit, that's why it's so important to be aware of how you place your focus and how you interpret things, because it changes your reality. And the reason why I talk about this stuff, in fact, in this, the new book that I'm working on that may or may not ever finish, the first chapters of the book are about this topic, about how your brain cannot be trusted. It's a great tool, but it's not absolute. It's a great way to get a snapshot, but it's not everything. And the reason why that's important is because if you let go of your grip on reality, you're open to things that you're not seeing, that may or may not be there, but you cannot see them if you don't believe it's possible. And that can mean even the law of attraction, or that you can think yourself happy. I was watching a Tony Robbins thing recently, and he was, he's big on getting a state, creating a mental state. You can change your state, which is a similar thing where your interpretation of your own emotions in a set time and place are not passively the result of all of this stuff, because you control how you see all this stuff. And if you're aware that it's all kind of best guess, then you can trick your whole system into being happier, to being more excited, he gets you to think about, times when you're proud, times when you're excited, and you go, okay, wow, I'm feeling it. Now, there's a great book called Stumbling on Happiness, or Stumbling Towards Happiness, by Dan Gilbert, which is filled with studies about how our brains are not to be trusted, especially as tools to figure out what we will or will not enjoy, what makes us happy. And I was listening to his TED Talk, and he talks about how there's very little difference in being happy because you get what you want, and being happy because you generate that feeling. Meaning, if I really wanted to get apartment A and they reject me, and so I end up going to apartment B, and I go, oh, well, it's good enough. And then I start to go, you know what? Actually, apartment B is better for me. It's cheaper. It's actually, it's smaller, but, it's more suited for me, and it's closer to my girlfriend. I like it here. I like it here. That happiness that I can generate that way doesn't feel any different than if I go, yeah, I got apartment A. Oh, I like this apartment. This is the one I wanted. Once we get through our rationalizing, it feels the same. So we can make ourselves as happy as the world can make us. Let me say that again. We can make ourselves as happy as the world can make us. In his talk, he also said that, one of the reasons why we have a bias, we have a cultural bias against self-generated happiness is because it would make our system fall apart. If we have a system where we don't need things in the world, and we can just know that we can generate our own happiness, well then capitalism kind of starts to collapse. But that's okay. We can save that for another TED Talk. What we should focus on is the fact that we can generate our feelings. We cannot be held captive by our perceptions, visual, auditory, thought. Neil deGrasse Tyson, he was talking about, what do they call them, optical illusions. And all these things that you can study about how, you think you see this, or this starts moving, or, this looks the same size as this. There's all these things. And he goes, you should call them what they are. Brain failures. And I love that. Like, they have all these optical illusions that are basically ways of highlighting how our brain does the best it can. And good for it. We should be proud of it and understand its limitations so that we don't get trapped by thinking that we can, if I see it, it's real. There's more to the world than what you can logically perceive. Intuition is one of those gifts that if you do not let go of the absolutes of your perceptions and your logical thoughts, you will never make space for intuition. And you may never find yourself in the flow because that requires letting go of the reality as it's been told to you. There's just so many examples. I was asked to speak so cool at UCSD last week and hanging out with Shai, who arranged it all, and he's been working with all sorts of types of perception tests and phantom limb things. And so there's all these things that they study with phantom limbs, or where you can have somebody touch themselves on their body while you're looking at them, and then you feel it. There's all these different studies that show that, how our brain does the best it can. And I know I'm kind of saying this over and over in different ways, but it's the same reason why I think this has got to be the first chapter of the book. Let go of the way you think it is and allow yourself to project a little bit more of what you want. Because then it will be that way. One of my mantras is, I lead a charmed life. I guarantee if my mantra was, I'm unlucky, I wouldn't be here today. I would probably be at the mechanic fixing something on my car. But no, all is awesome because I lead a charmed life. That's what I look for. That's what you need to practice. That's what a gratitude list is for. Steering your focus. Reality is infinite. How you focus it defines the world you live in. So, let us do this. Let us focus our reality into this moment right now. This moment that is shared live in an archive with other like-minded, open-hearted, amazing people that are on their path of stripping away what is not them and allowing their vibrant hearts to shine. And as they do so, as you do so, it not only ripples out into the world around you, but it strengthens everyone else on that same path and allows our ripples to be even stronger. Thank you. Let's grab ourselves by the shoulders. Notice the feeling of them, the sensation as it travels through your nervous system to your brain, puts together a picture of the world. And if it's enjoyable, then squeeze it, relish it, enjoy it. Because from this place, with these sensations, we have a front row seat to the unfolding of the universe. And with a near infinite number of things to pay attention to, we can focus on the ones that bring us joy, that allow us to sit in awe. Always keeping a certain percentage open for uncertainty and questioning, so that as things come up that are outside of what we know to be true, we don't discard them, we don't miss them, because we know that we are flawed in all of our perceptions. We are short-handed in all of our thinking. We are infants in consciousness in the universe. We need not understand it all. We need simply appreciate. And it is that place of humility that things that cannot be measured with the same type of scale start to guide us, the flow, vibration, intuition. So as we sit for a moment in the oneness of that vibration, let's take 3 breaths. in gratitude, in connection, and in love. In through the nose. On behalf of Grandpa Caleb and all the Love Warriors, Happy Hug Nation. Thank you for being you.